Now there's lots of reasons why I read short books. Sometimes I get in a reading slump and I just need something short to get me started. Sometimes life gets busy and I just don't have the time or energy to invest into a 400-page book. Or if I did read something that was 400 pages long, I like to follow that up with a short book as a sort of palate cleanser.
The course is to cleanse the palate. Yeah.
And other times I just want to explore a new author or genre to see if I like the style. I recently did this with Stephen King and John Steinbeck. I read one of their shorter books before making the jump to one of their epic novels. And so this just allows me to enjoy a variety of new stories and voices without this big time commitment. Or it's December and I'm a few books away from reaching my annual reading goal. This can help with that too. You can easily knock out a novella a week just by reading for like 15 minutes a day. And so all that being said, I'm JB. I like to read and talk about books. And if you do too, please consider liking and subscribing. Today I'll be talking about 4 short books that you can read in a day. Okay, Small Things Like These by Keegan is easily one of the best novellas or novels I've ever read. It's only 116 pages, and this book impacted me more than most 400-page novels that I've read. It's just incredible how much Keegan packed into this book. She's just a master of the craft. Every sentence felt so precise, and after reading this, I can totally see why this was named on the New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century list. This story takes place in the weeks of leading up to Christmas. It's 1985 Ireland, and it opens with this imagery of this freezing cold small town. And we follow this man named Bill Furlong, who is a coal and timber merchant, and he's basically a contrast to this cold. He goes out in the morning delivering coal to those in need, being a source of warmth to strangers, but also to his family. He's a husband, incredible husband, father to 4 girls, and they're just doing their best to get by in these harsh times. And so, but like any father, he has worries about the future, like what will become of his daughters, what kind of world will they grow up in? And these thoughts are kind of pushed even further when one day, when on a delivering run, he comes face to face with this terrible discovery at a local convent. And so now what's happening here is based on these real life Magdalene laundries, who these women were imprisoned and forced into labor camps. I'd never heard of this before, so I Googled it while I was reading it, and apparently 30,000 women went through this, and some of them spent their entire lives there in these places in Ireland for like over 200 years. And I just found it wild that these things were still going on until 1996. Now, these women suffered all kinds of abuse, isolation, they were even separated from their children, and just so many people just turned a blind eye to it. And that includes the characters in this book. When Bill brings this up in conversation with the other characters, people just tell him to just let it be. Like, the church has too much power. Like, you don't want to ruin your career or your family. And there's this really powerful scene. It's midnight mass, and he's just praying, and he just feels like a hypocrite. And it's also Christmas, which kind of adds hypocrisy to the whole community. Like, how can you look at yourself in the mirror and turn a blind eye to this? He just finds himself asking questions like that the entire time. And we hear him saying these things out loud, like, what is the point of being alive if we can't help one another? And so this is just a beautiful and moving book. I really loved Mrs. Wilson and Bill Furlong as characters. This book will make you think about how you can extend more kindness out into this world. And I love this one. I highly recommend it. This will end up as an all-time favorite book for me. Okay, this is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck, and this opens with a 45-year-old Mormon man in hell. And everything about this place is opposite of what we expected his afterlife to be like. He was a good husband, a good father, so he thought he was going to end up in some sort of paradise, but he's in a version of a library hell. And it's not the hell we see in all those animated shows with the fire and brimstone. This one is a boring, monotonous library. It has a bunch of surprises like a bathroom toilet, a kiosk that gives you any food that you want, and all the people are white English Americans. And so here he discovers his entire belief system was wrong. But now that he's there, the only way that he can get out is if he finds the book that contains the story of his life. And so the problem with that is this library has an infinite numbers of books, like every book ever written. I can only imagine what this is like. Like, I hate waiting in any sort of line, and I can imagine like waiting a million years to find a book. And while you're looking for this book, they're all empty or have like gibberish text and symbols. And so this was just a really interesting book. I'm not a big philosophy reader, but it brings up some big questions like, what gives life meaning? Is mortality the thing that gives our life's values? Would you actually want to live forever? Because honestly, the way this place is described is absolutely terrifying. There's this scene where he's just falling down this hole, falling and falling. It's like 120 miles per hour, and it just never ends. It's this repeated loop of him dying again and again and again, and he stabs himself. And it just got a little dark and graphic there, but then there were other times that provided more moments moments of hope. He does get to spend time with people and develop some relationships, and that kind of pushes him to keep on going. And so overall, I kind of enjoyed this balance. It was an easy read, and the concept felt really unique to me, even though I think this is inspired or adapted from a short story called The Library of Babel. And I'm going to have to read that one to compare the two, but this is definitely a bleak story. It has a mix of humor, if you can find it, a little bit of horror, and I think this is a read that will linger with me for years to come. I could definitely see why this is recommended a lot this past year on Book Talk. If you're into those existential type read, I think you'll enjoy this one. Okay, next is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This story follows Keiko, a 36-year-old woman who has worked at a convenience store for 18 years. And she started there as a teenager, and I think she counted it to like 157,000 hours. Now, Keiko is very meticulous and she's very observant about her job. She follows every customer interaction with the script. Everything on the shelves must go in a certain order. She even copies the speech pattern of her bosses. And I just loved her deadpan style of delivery, her dialogue. It just added to the quirkiness and likability to the character. She's just very unconventional, and she's been this way her entire life. Like since she was a kid, she'd say funny phrases like flower corpses and even hit kids with shovels. And she just didn't understand what to do or say in certain social situations. And so her family had always hoped that one day she'd be fixed. And so now she's an adult, and she just did her best to kind of fit in at the store. But that's until the people make her question her worth. The customers and family ask her, like, why are you still working here at 36? Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? And so she starts paying attention to the lack of change in her life. People come and go, items are replaced, but she's kind of always stayed the same. And people just keep telling her that she can't go on like this. And as a reader, I just hated all these people. Like one guy in particular is like one of the worst characters ever. He just would not leave her alone. And I'm just like, just let her be, man. I think if she's not harming anyone, she likes what she does. If that's what makes her happy, then let her be. Why does this make everyone around her so uncomfortable? And but that's not society. If we do or don't do certain things, we aren't normal. And I like this commentary aspect of this book. It kind of delivers a great reminder of being happy with who we are, especially in a world where we're constantly feel like we have to grind to climb these social ladders. And so while this book, just by looking at the cover, kind of gave me the impression that it was going to be like a quirky, kind of funny read, it actually had a lot more depth to it in terms of like things that I think about, what I should be doing about in this point in my life. And I really enjoyed this writing style. So I hope to check out her other books in the future. Okay, this is Strange Dreams by Denis Johnson, and the reason I picked this book up is because the film had a lot of buzz. It was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. This was a book that was also on the New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century list. And so this one had a lot of hype going into this one for me. I think my biggest mistake with this book was treating it like it would be this light and quick read. But there is nothing light about this one. It has a writing style that is very poetic and almost dreamlike. And I honestly just think I wasn't in the right headspace for it. The sentences, they carry a lot of weight, and I can analyze some literature, but I think this book just requires you to make a lot more inferences more often. And I think that's kind of where it lost me, because this isn't exactly like a plot-driven or character-driven book in a literary sense, traditional sense, and I couldn't really emotionally connect with the story at all, or the character. And we follow this man named Robert Granier, who is a logger and railroad builder in 1917. And he's away from his family while he works, and he returns to find out that there was this huge fire back home, and he lost his wife, he loses his daughter, he loses everything. And so the rest of the story is him dealing with the grief and confusion of it all. And he's also living during a time of modernization of America. And so there's a lot of time jumps here in this novel. We see him dealing with the world churning and churning. Well, he's basically isolated and going about his day-to-day life. And so his life is pretty much ordinary as it gets. He just works and tries to survive. And so when you combine the time jumps with the lack of translated emotions, the small memories, I didn't really connect with the narrative arc. I wasn't really invested in Robert's journey. He kind of felt like a distant character to me. It was a lot more subtle in how the author captured the loneliness and the changes going on in America. And so I feel like a book like this is normally something I'd enjoy, but maybe I just read this at the wrong time. There's this also aspect of magical realism that just didn't land with me. I don't know. I got to give it another shot, because I know there are a lot of people who love this one. It was recommended to me a lot, and I wish I was there to howl alongside him when he was teaching that pup. But this is going to be one of those books, I think, where I like the movie more. The movie was just visually beautiful. I love the cinematography, the acting, and I don't know. I just felt like I was much more emotionally invested watching the movie than I was reading this book. But I'll give it another shot in the future, and I'll see if my perspective changes on this one. And so those were my February reads. If you are in a reading slump or just need something to read while you wait at the DMV, I think one of these should work out for you. I definitely plan on checking out more of Claire Keegan's books. I also picked up this other book called Orbital by Samantha Harvey. So more short books are coming soon. If you have any recommendations for any novellas, any short novels, please drop them in the comments. Thank you guys for checking this video out. Happy reading, and I will see you on the next one.